Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to talk about some confusing parts of SWGO and explaining them to you. There are certain aspects of this game that can be pretty confusing that we might use, interchangeably as a content creator that some of you might not truly understand why or what or how it's interacting with each other, and I wanted to kind of do this. So if you guys have some others that you'll want to see on this list, please let me know in the comment section if there are other aspects of the game you'd like me to explain. So with that said, let's get like and subscribe and comment down below. Got to give our shout to the channel members, all the support that they give. If you're ever interested, again, link in the video description. More importantly, in that description is a link to our Discord server. Go check out the Discord, join there, get chatting. Appreciate all of you guys. Let's get in here and let's just talk about some of these confusing relationships, aspects of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. All right, folks, so the first thing we're going to talk about, which is actually, it's so funny, but we're going to talk about offense. And in particular, we're going to be explaining like physical versus special and true damage and armor pen versus resistance pen versus defense pen. There's just, and when we say pen, we're talking penetration for armor, resistance, and defense. Not the other kind. Anyway, when we're talking about offense here, every character in a specific ability, it will talk about the kind of damage that they deal. So when we click on Starkiller and you go to his basic, you'll see physical damage. When you go here, you'll see another one, physical damage. Come here, physical damage. What this means when you go into Starkiller is the physical offense right here, used to calculate damage dealt by all physical abilities, reduced by the opponent's armor. Right? So here, this is what's going to tell you how much damage Starkiller is going to do. You can completely ignore special offense. There is nothing here that matters for Starkiller because he's a physical offense character. Then you have his armor penetration, accuracy, and the critical chance. When we go over to Ben Solo and you read, he's got special damage, and special damage. So he is dealing special damage. So when we go here, you can ignore this entire physical offense section because it doesn't apply to him. He's a special damage attacker. So now you're looking here for resistance pen, his accuracy, the critical chance, and damage that he has for special offense. So right there, it's very obvious. Look at Count Dooku here. This is one of the few characters where he's physical damage on the basic, but special damage on the lightning ability, which is, he's one of the few characters where it's 1-in-1. I think General Veers is also like this. So for Count Dooku, his basic is down here, which if you've ever really used Count Dooku, you would know his basic doesn't hit that hard. But you look, he's got 10,000 special offense, at least mine does at Relic 8. He deals a lot more damage with the lightning ability than he does his basic. And now you kind of get why, because he's got more special offense than he does physical offense. And those two abilities are based off of a different kind of offense. Then we have true damage, which true damage is going to be calculated it'll kind of tell you when it's like that kind of damage. So look here, like deal true damage. And if you go to, like the droid here, Droidica, it actually explains it where it's deal physical damage and true damage. Ignores defense, but can't critically hit. Whenever you hear true damage, you want offense. Whenever there's a character that deals true damage, just load up on offense. Your true damage is based off of your offense, right? So the more offense you have, the more true damage you will do, right? And it'll even say deal physical damage. And again, this is true damage, so that's where you're going here and calculating that number. But for true damage, you ignore this number, and it doesn't even, you ignore even the armor pen. It doesn't matter because you're ignoring defense. So when you're looking at stats or you're looking at a modifier and you see offense, right? Offense up, for example, right? Offense up will grant you additional offense, whether special or physical or true damage. It does not discriminate. It does not care. It's going to make you better regardless of the kind of offense that you deal. This is different compared to when you go to some of the datacrons we have had in the past. And I'm going to switch over to the screenshot here. So this is from the Unexpected Resurgence. I forget when this was. 8 months ago. So it expired a while ago. But when you look, you see special damage and physical damage. When they're split out like that, you need to really understand that a character like Ben Solo, right? If I go back to the game here, when they're split out like that, a character like Ben Solo, he's going to benefit from special damage, right? That's what he wants. He needs that special damage. Whereas Rey, right, Galactic Legends Rey, she deals physical damage, right? She's a physical damage character. So if you're trying to utilize a Datacron for Rey and Ben Solo, you'd want to, if it's not offense percent, then you need to realize, okay, I either got to go with special or I got to go with physical. Like, I'm going to benefit one or the other. I personally would go with the physical for Rey, but you can see how that works. And just to show you that even in real time here, right, if I'm to go to my current team, I have, Kenobi in here. Kenobi, he deals physical damage, and Commander Tano deals special damage. If I go to the Datacron and I just equip, say, this Empire one, just for the sake of argument, I go and equip this Datacron. If you look at Kenobi, he's getting a boost to his physical offense, and he's getting a boost to his special offense. Just like Commander Tano will get a boost to her physical and a boost to her special. And it will just, again, you can see the whole special damage, physical, all that kind of stuff. So if it's just blatant offense, it won't care. But if it does call out special or physical in like a Datacron stat and recognize what that's doing. It's the same thing with armor penetration and resistance penetration and then defense penetration. Armor penetration is for physical attackers. It ignores an equal amount of the opponent's armor. Recognize that armor and resistance are not the same thing. They are based on what kind of damage they stop. Resistance is from abilities with special damage, and armor is for abilities used physical damage. So a character like Oppo, he's going to benefit from armor penetration because he deals physical damage. Whereas Captain Drogon, his abilities are special damage. So you want to load up on resistance penetration for Drogon. And just to show you that, right? Just to show you what that means when you go and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to equip a Datacron here. I've got this Datacron Saw Gerrera for armor penetration. When I go here, and again, I've just got Commander Tano, who's a special damage attacker. When you look, that armor penetration, it's going on her physical offense, but it's not going to her special. It's not going to the resistance pen there. Where if you were to then say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go equip the Dad Bod Bobacron, which has both armor and resistance pen. I can go now to Commander Tano, and she's getting resistance penetration, and she's getting the armor pen. And I go to Kenobi, and he's also going to have the same thing, armor pen and resistance pen. So depending on the kind of attacker they are, they're going to benefit more from armor pen or resistance pen. And that's important, especially when you're thinking about how you utilize a Datacron with Captain Drogon. I've seen people say, oh yeah, I use really high armor pen with Captain Drogon. Well, he's a special damage attacker, so it doesn't matter. All that armor pen is useless. It doesn't help him. Defense penetration. If you ever see that, it's normally a buff. I don't think we've ever had defense penetration as a part of a Datacron. But if you see defense penetration, like here in Seer's ability, defense penetration helps regardless, like offense, right? Offense up, defense pen up. Doesn't care if you're special damage or physical damage. It's going to help you all the same. You get the same benefit from those. This is extremely important to understand, this relationship, because it will help you not just utilizing Datacrons, but also mods as well. Normally, the rule of thumb is that a special offense character, they normally have a lower critical chance, which oftentimes means that you're going to want to avoid critical damage and more so mod with just offense mods. Whereas characters who have a, physical damage oftentimes have a higher critical chance, and that means that you're going to want to mod. You can mod them for critical damage and kind of get away with it. Another really good example of that is Grandmaster Yoda. Where's he at? He's a special damage character. So when you look, Grandmaster Yoda, his special offense, I've got 45 critical chance, and 22 of that is coming from mods. So he only has like a 20% critical chance at his base. Whereas you'd say, oh, he's got, 70%. No, You've got to look down here at the 45 because that's what it is, because he's special damage. So that's one of those situations where, again, you've really got to pay attention to that, and it does make a difference in how you want to mod the character to ensure you're taking full advantage of their kit. And that's something that I think we as players sometimes maybe take for granted, that people understand that, because that's a huge part of this game, especially even on the flip side. If you're using a character and you see a Datacron with a lot of armor pen or a lot of resistance, you know that, all right, if I bring a physical damage attacker against that team, all that resistance is pointless. Or if I bring a special damage attacker, all that armor is pointless, because they don't benefit the same way, much like the resistance and armor pen, right? They've got to be very, it's either, if it's offense, defense, then it benefits, everything, and you're fine. So wanted to at least explain that relationship a little bit, and I hope it's not too confusing, but it is something to look at, right? Tenacity versus potency. This is a fun one. So tenacity and potency are not equal at all, right? They're not equivalent at all. Here's why. You always have a 15% base chance to resist a debuff. No matter how much potency you put on your character, there is a base 15% chance that you are going to resist debuffs. And that is even with tenacity down on a character, they can still resist debuffs. It is beyond frustrating, and it's not fair, because if you have tenacity up, you will never get a single debuff. Tenacity up will stop any debuff that is resistible, meaning Darth Vader's Force Crush. You will not land a single debuff. But Lord Vader, who has an irresistible daze and the damage over times, those will land because they're irresistible, right? There's no potency and tenacity check on those debuffs. They are applying no matter what you do, no matter where you hide. But for, certain characters, there is this potency and tenacity check. Obviously, the more of one you have, the better. And I don't know all the specific math to know at what point, this and this and this, but a general rule of thumb that I try to tell people is loading up on tenacity is normally smarter than loading up on potency. Not to say that getting a lot of potency isn't good. Do not get me wrong there. But there is still always that 15% chance that you could get resisted, even with tenacity down. That it's always there, and it's very dumb. Next, sorry for the, crappy intro here. My daughter came down and needed me to plunge a toilet. So we are going to be did some editing here to combine these two parts. So now we're on to health-based damage. There's a couple different kinds of health-based damage, and I've got a couple here just to kind of explain that and how you can tell if it's going to tickle or be a mortal hit to characters that take reduced damage from percent health attacks. So let's start up here with Darth Malgus. His ability Dark Deception will deal true damage to the target enemy equal to 40% of Darth Malgus's max health. So the damage that this ability will do is based off of Darth Malgus's max health, and that calculation will happen in game based on all the different, unique, leadership, datacrons, all that kind of stuff. So this number, it's not just 40% of this number, it's far greater than that. Another character with a very similar situation is Starkiller. When he pulls down the Star Destroyer, it's damage equal to 80% of Starkiller's max health to all enemies. That again is based off of his max health after all the uniques, leaderships, datacrons, that kind of stuff. A character like Darth Malak with Drain Life, he will deal damage to the enemy equal to 100% of their max health. So the difference here between Malgus and Malak is that regardless of what character you're targeting, this will always deal the same amount of damage. Same thing with Starkiller. This ability will deal the same amount of damage to every single character because it's based off of Starkiller's max health. It's based off of Malgus's. Darth Malgus Drain Life, this will deal the same amount of damage at Relic 9 as it on the same character. So if I'm going up against a Relic 9, 5s, just for the sake, or General Kenobi, a Gear 8 Malak will deal just as much damage with this as a Relic 9 Malak because it's damage equal to the target's max health, not necessarily Malak's max health, right? And it's the target. So whatever the target is, if it's the same target and both Maliks are lower relics, lower gear, it won't matter. It's based off of who you're targeting. So with Malik's ability, if that character has 1,000,000 max health, it's going to deal 1,000,000 damage. If that character has 20,000 max health, it's going to deal 20,000 damage. It's just going to take 100% of whatever your max health is. So with somebody like Malik, one of the things you can do to sometimes stop characters like this is mod for max protection, and that way drain life does not take away nearly as much. Think about someone like General Skywalker in that regard. Whereas Darth Malgus, he didn't care what your max health is. If it's 1,000,000 max health, he's still only going to deal 40% of his. If you only have, 50,000 health, he's going to deal 40% of his and probably delete you. So, those characters, it is kind of you've got to understand how that calculation is happening. Characters like General Grievous, his abilities deal damage based off of his max health instead of physical damage. So you can basically throw this number out the door. It doesn't matter. It's based off of his max health. Darth Bane, his basic and his special one here deal physical damage. They do not deal damage based on his max health. They deal damage based on his physical offense. This Essence of Dominance will deal damage based on Bane's max health. The more max health he has, the more damage this ability will do. So again, very similar to, now it doesn't give you the calculation for him or General Grievous but basically the more you have, the better, right? Whereas with Starkiller and Malgus, it's a very, you could, if you know what their health is, you could calculate the damage. This one and General Grievous, you can't calculate the damage because it's just based on it. The more you have, the better, right? Then you have the relationship of damage over times and expose. A damage over time will deal damage to equal to 5% of your max health, and a expose will deal 20% of your max health damage. In those particular instances, when you look at all those things, when you look at the characters like Kylo Ren Unmasked, OG Kylo, and Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, the damage over times, exposes, and Darth Malik, they will just tickle those characters. These guys, when you see that line of text that says immune to percent health damage effects, right? Every single Kylo has that. Every single Galactic Legend has that. And even some other tanks will have that. Malik is another one. They take reduced damage from percent health effects. They're talking about damage over times and expose. Or another way to say it is any damage that's based off of their max health, they will take reduced damage from. Whereas Malgus, Starkiller, Bane, and General Grievous will still hit these characters with everything they have without that damage penalty for max health because it's based off of their own stuff. It's not taking theirs into consideration. Finally, we have Protection Up, Bonus Protection, and Shield Up. These are also kind of confusing, especially for a newer player, because Protection Up and Bonus Protection are actually based off of your max health. They're not based off of your, protection, which is so funny because they have protection in the name, but they have nothing to do with protection. They're everything to do with health. And the best way to know that with bonus protection, you could just say, trust me, bro. But if you look, Rey loses 25% health, and target light side ally grants bonus protection equal to the amount lost. So right there, that's your cue of the more health Rey has, the more bonus protection she gives out. Nest is another example where she's going to gain bonus protection, again, based off of her max health. The more health she has, the more bonus protection she will get. General Kenobi and Jabba both are characters that have this protection up mechanic, and again, protection up is based off of your max health. Another easy way to tell that is mod your General Kenobi for protection and then mod him for health under a Jedi Master Kenobi team and see how quickly he melts when he's modded for protection comparative to health. And it's an easy way to figure it out. Other than just trust me, bro, go experiment and you'll find out. Shield Up, which was introduced with the Gungans. This is 100% based off of your max protection, and it tells you that. Gain a shield based on max protection. So if Shield Up is gain a shield based on max protection, you could assume that Protection Up is, going to be based off of your max health as well, simply because they're defining Shield Up there. I will say, I wish they did this with more abilities where they had a little index in the game that you could go and figure out what each of these things do, because it would lead to a lot less confusion and give you a lot more understanding of how to mod characters. So guys, that's just some confusing elements to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes that I wanted to explain. Let me know what other topics you want me to cover, what other relationships or concepts are a little bit confusing that you'd love to hear me explain. I want to hear from you guys. I want to be able to teach you. That's what this whole channel is about. So whether it's how health-based damage works and whether it's going to hurt or not, how, Potency and Tenacity kind of have a, their thing together. And then I think the biggest thing today, the big one I wanted to cover, was the offense. This is an area that I think a lot of players struggle with and don't have a great understanding of, because it really isn't in your face. You might hear stuff, but you don't really understand how it's all coming together. And there's fine details like that armor pen and resistance pen that doesn't quite click in players' heads. So that's the video, folks. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.